Hey everyone, quick announcement. Each week, I try to bring you an episode to the show that offers something for everyone. It might be a training tip, insight into a world or national champion's life and how they got to where they are, or it might just be talking sports, the shooting sports in particular, for entertainment purposes. At the bottom of each of my episodes, you will find a Koji link to my website where you can find sponsors, links to guests, things of that nature. Currently, there are three sponsors: Laser App, Gun Butter Lubrication, and now Aim Size Products. I will be putting out a specific episode about Aim Size and their products. But by using the links provided, you indirectly support the podcast without any additional cost to you. As a matter of fact, you typically save money by following those links. They'll give you a discount, and then they'll send a little bit my way just to kind of help with the podcast. The discount link for Hoist is included. However, I don't get anything from Hoist, but I believe in their product, and I feel it's a hydration product for you, which I highly recommend, especially shooting matches in the summertime where it's hot and humid. Now, if you don't use any of the products listed, there is still a way to support the podcast by using the tip button on the Koji link. It surely isn't required. None of this is required, but it is greatly appreciated. I'm trying to make the podcast as professional as possible, which does take time, a lot of time, and money. You can use the link to email me as well, whether you have suggestions for guests or whatever, comments, feedback. Regardless of whether you use a sponsor link or not, I still hope you enjoy the show. Please like it, share it, and give it a 5-star rating if you're so inclined. Thanks. Welcome to this special episode of the Casual Shooters Podcast, your premier podcast for the casual shooter. This special episode is all about Dryfire, more specifically, Dryfire Systems. Casey Reed and Luke Faust were kind enough to agree to come on the show and talk about their joint effort, Dryfire Systems. It's available online at dryfire.systems. So why don't you join me in welcoming Casey and Luke to the show. How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Doing well.
How about you?
Awesome. Good. Really good. All right. Now, Luke, you were on when you were running for Area 3. Casey, this is your first time. So
Correct.
if you guys would, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Go ahead.
Whomever would like to go first.
Sure. So I'll kick it off then. I have I guess we are both engineers working for Federal Ammunition. I've worked in quality my whole career and pretty much ammunition my whole career. I work across all the plants, rimfire, shot shell, center fire, everything. Designing systems is that manage our quality inspections and frequencies and gauging and all that. That's my primary role. Been shooting USPSA seriously since about 2019, and shot my first match though actually back in 2008. Just didn't have the money or the resources to really take it seriously for a while. And
yeah, so I've also been working at Federal Ammunition for about as long as Luke. I started there in July of 2011 as an intern when I was 19, and I primarily have worked in new products. So right now I'm in new products designing handgun ammunition. I started USPSA back in 2012. So actually a coworker from Federal introduced me to USPSA back in 2012. So I've been shooting since then. And I knew Luke, from about 2014 on, but we never really talked guns or USPSA or shooting. But 2018, 2019, when he started getting interested into it, we became friends and started shooting together quite often.
All right. So for the audience, exactly what is Dryfire Systems and how long has it been around?
Casey, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I can take this one. Yeah, so Dryfire Systems is a program kind of helped. It kind of gave the birth to it in 2019 when I started thinking about, hey, how do we get a program that's set up to tell me what to dry fire? I've been dry firing and training for about 7 years at the time. And even still, as a grandmaster shooter, I would still go downstairs every day and think, man, like, what should I practice today? Like, what drills should I do? And that question to me was a problem. So I came up with an idea that I wanted a program that would just tell me what to do every single day and what volumes and how long to do it and everything like that. So I talking with Luke, and we kind of came up with a system here, Dryfire Systems, that pretty much does that for you. So using real data from real matches, it is a program that tells you what drill to do, target setups, barriers, and all those sorts of details every single day. So you get to work out 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We change dry fire arrays up quite often. So you have arrays to set up in your basement. And yeah, I don't know if anything you want to add to that, Luke.
Yeah, I mean, coming from the other perspective, I was actually pretty new into actually seriously shooting USPSA when I started talking with Casey. And I was still at the phase of just like soaking up everything I could, and learning everything I could. And so, he was talking about, some ideas he had because I was asking him about dry fire. What do you do? How do you do it, et cetera? And he's like, hey, yeah, I'm trying to put together a program, and try to structure a little more and potentially make that program available to other shooters. And it kind of, through, my organizational abilities and being able to structure and develop systems. And then, obviously my curiosity as a newer shooter, like, hey, Casey, what do you do every day? Tell me exactly what you do, how you do it. Why do you do this? How do you, why did you do this, then this, et cetera? And really breaking down his training and a lot of things that him as a very naturally gifted shooter was able to figure out intuitively that I'll tell you, I never would have figured out intuitively. And being able to boil that down into a system that kind shooters who aren't as intuitive are able to be given a lesson plan that says, hey, not just based off it, because it's kind of funny. We started the original program based off a lot of Casey's intuition. How much do you need to be doing entries versus exits versus weekend versus, all these different skill sets, how often they occur. And it started just off his intuition. And then eventually we started plugging it into actual nationals match data, and nothing moved by more than 2 or 3%. It's like, okay, he has a pretty good sense of what the sport is. And so that was cool to see. And it was something that as I worked with Casey to build it, it was incredibly useful for me as a shooter. And then also, kind of met Casey's goal of being able to share his training and his methods with more people.
Now, did this, as I understand it, it started off as something else, correct? And kind of molded itself into this Dryfire system.
Yeah, so I'd say our original branding was a little different too. We started as Casey Reed Shooting, and that was the original branding before I even came into the picture. And then not only has the branding changed at the beginning of 2023, I think is when we changed over to Dryfire Systems, just to better encapsulate what it really is. I would say every 6 months to a year, every 6 months thus far, we release kind of a new generator, a new programming behind what we're doing. And, so for the first couple of years that we were doing this, 2020, 2021, you saw lots of different experimentation with different drills we were doing and the structure of the workouts. And things continue to evolve. We're continuing to add in more drills and tweak things and get rid of little idiosyncrasies within the drills. But they've definitely, the program has stabilized into something we're really proud of more recently.
Okay. Now, Casey, at what point did you? So I assume this is first initially based on what you were just talking about, trying to figure out what dryer fire routine you needed to do, what you needed to work on to get better. How long did it take you to make GM?
I became GM in 2016. I started in 2012, so about 4 years.
Okay. Now, Luke, I know that you, like you said, before you really got serious, you were B/C class for about 10 years.
Yep.
Okay. Now, how long after talking with Casey and you guys start delving into this seriously did it take you to make master?
It was about a class a year. So uh,
Okay.
B within a year, A within a year, and then M within a year after that.
Okay. Very nice.
Yeah, and I will say, like, the caveat there is, no matter what, or like the kind of, I am not a natural athlete in any sense in any sport I've ever tried to do. So it was funny. I'll never forget this. Me and Casey, it was probably pretty early on, and we traveled to a match together, and we're in a hotel room, just kind of, I'm doing a little dry fire warm up. I think he had already, done his 10 perfect draws and reloads and said, "All right, I'm good, ship it." And I'm sitting there just missing reload after reload after reload, just muffin mags all over the damn floor. And he looks up at me and he goes, "Are you okay? Is this normal?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is totally normal. Like, just dead serious." And that kind of was, I think, an eye opener for both of us, in the sense of what it can be like for someone who doesn't have any natural coordination or gift at all. And then also, just every time I do a session with him and watch him hit 70 perfect reloads in a row, I realize how far I still have to go in training. So yeah.
70 in a row. That's pretty solid. Now, and it does look like, so I take it this is the first full year then with Dryfire Systems.
Yeah, under this branding, yes.
Right.
The programming is very, very similar. We did switch platforms as well. We were using TrueCoach for a while as our kind of hosting platform, and now we've shifted under a website-based membership site, which is a lot more streamlined and a lot more directed towards what we're doing. With the TrueCoach was really meant for like the fitness industry. And that's where a lot of the threads of what we're doing here came from, was during those 10 years that I was only semi-seriously, not even semi-seriously, casually shooting, casually shooting,
Boom.
competition shooting. I was pretty into CrossFit and a CrossFit coach. And so I knew of TrueCoach through that. And not only that software that we originally started with, but a lot of the principles, the good stuff from CrossFit, we applied to the methodology behind the programming.
Okay. Now, let me go back here. There we go. All right. So I've got the page up from your website that says Dryfire Arrays.
Yep.
And you have the first half of the year and the second half of the year. So as I understand it, the drills, the weekly drills, the workouts, as you call them, are based on that set of arrays. So whatever workouts you put in from here till the end of the year are using the July through December arrays. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the yes and no. So the yes, we rotate arrays every 6 months. And if you're using, if you look at the workouts, you can see it calls out your targets within the workouts. I mean, we get literally to that level of specificity in which you really don't have to think about any aspect of the drill. You can just follow it exactly as written. That being said, we also have more generic descriptions of those targets so that you could use your own targets in any configuration you wanted, and the program could still be executed to maximal efficiency. So we provide those arrays, and the workouts correspond to those arrays and those targets and how they're designated. But you don't have to use them if you don't want to.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah.
So you're just providing the workout. There are arrays there if you want to use them, but you can use whatever targets you want for the workouts.
Yeah. And that's
okay.
that's another thing that that's a kind of an overarching theme. We are giving you like the exact prescription, every little detail covered. That doesn't mean you have to do it exactly that way. If we give you 5 drills and you run out of time, okay, cool. 3 drills is better than 0. You had a good workout. Or if you get into your first or second drill and you want to, you're like, hey, I just, I'm not I want to spend some more time working on this skill, do it. It doesn't have to be the rigid thing that we lay out, and you don't have to cover all the bases. And if you want to tweak something, this or that, or if you can't lay out your room like the Dryfire arrays, but you want to use it, it's all good. We're giving a specific prescription for the people who really want to dive into every little detail and do it exactly make it fit for what you're doing. We even adapt it for us depending on what we got going on.
Okay, I gotcha. So there's flexibility in there. You can do what you want. Okay.
Yep.
Now, I was wondering too, because this is the first year, so there wasn't anything older than this year. Come January 1, does this stuff stay there? So if somebody wanted to go back to a workout, say they remember doing one last August, before nationals, they'll be able to go back to that month, or?
So I tend to, and you can probably tell by the website and a lot of things, I'm a cleanliness freak. I like to keep things clean. So I try to keep enough workouts in there that people have a good sampling of stuff to go back to. But I try, the page gets kind of cluttered if I have too many different target arrays or too many workouts, historical workouts. So typically when we restart a new, because we have new arrays every 6 months and we have a new cycle, I'll typically clear out our workouts on the member side every you won't see more than 3 months of history there typically. And then the arrays I've kept up just the last iteration of the arrays. We may in the future start keeping up more arrays, but we've changed them significantly enough in the way that they're presented that that we pulled down the old ones because they were presented a little bit differently.
Okay. Now you guys, very conveniently, I might add, I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but you guys have literally created the targets where you can print them out on 8.5 by 11.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for those people, let's say somebody who travels frequently, so they're out and maybe not even shooting, just for work, but like I traveled for work once, but I still took my gun with me. So I had the ability to dry fire while on a trip in the evenings. Have you guys considered working with like Bill Duda or somebody and having the correct size targets to restick for your arrays, or does the 8.5 by 11 work better for you?
So we went with that route to have a zero cost route for the shooter. That was the route we went with, because like we saw the main value, the unique product that we provide is the actual programming, like having a daily workout. With the targets, none of our targets are super unique in the sense of they would be available roughly to scale through Dryfire target packs that are out there right now. So if you wanted to recreate our arrays or nearly so, you could probably do so with what's out there right now. We haven't gone that route yet. For me personally, when I travel, I'll have a printed set of arrays and a little thing of masking tape and put them up in the hotel room and let her rip.
So I snapped this right off of the, can you guys see that okay?
Yep.
Okay, I snapped that right off of your Instagram. Now, and the reason I wanted to share this is part of my question here. This is part of a system. You put them together and you have a classifier, correct? Yeah.
So when looking at the Dryfire arrays and how we wanted to structure those, instead of, we started with just kind of, all right, well, should we just do some random targets and get a good variance? And then, I know that a lot of people have fun shooting classifiers and they like to use classifiers as like benchmarks. And that's also kind of a principle from CrossFit. You have benchmark workouts that you do. They're very similar to classifiers in the way that they're structured. And so I thought, hey, it would be cool if we could take a bunch of these benchmarks selectively, strategically select ones that give us a good variance of targets. Maybe sprinkle in some other targets that we feel like we needed to add to it that aren't necessarily a part of a classifier. And then, as part of our program, we can integrate, kind of some classifier shooting or some testing and give part times and so forth for people to have, a little bit more comprehensive tests or drills that correlate to something a little more integrated into the dry fire program.
Okay. Now you mentioned part times because that's part of what I wanted to bring up too. Like you mentioned earlier, you'd be in the hotel room in cases like, all right, I did my 10 perfect draws and reloads. I'm done. And there are, in some cases, you actually have part times attached to these drills.
Yes.
So this is going to be a multi-part question. One, how did you come up with because the part times are broken down by classification, really. A and B, M, GM, D and C classification. These are the times you should be able to do it in. Have you guys? So how did you come up with those part times? Number one. Number two, with the classifiers, I don't remember seeing a part time, but I may have just overlooked it. Do you guys have part times for the classifiers for the different classifications as well?
So, Casey, you want to talk to all the skill part times, then I'll talk to the classifier part times?
The skill part times? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of just trial and error. We did a lot of those. So like Luke would do the drills, I would do the drills, and we kind of came up with what we think that these shooters should be able to do. So an A to M to A or A to B, MGM. So it was kind of more of a trial and error thing to get those part times in. And you kind of have to keep it to just the isolation drills. Obviously, it's really hard to develop a part time for a transition drill that has all different arrangements, right, of targets. So we kept it simple with the draws, simple reloads, and things like that. Okay,
that makes sense.
And then on the classifier side of things, we developed. So I just mined the data off of what the high hit factor was for the part times, and then we started experimenting with. All right, well, we're shooting in dry fire, so the dots or the sights are not moving at all. You have no recoil to deal with. You have a lot less to deal with. What do we think's more reasonable for? And it ended up being, at least for a gun that doesn't recoil. What's that? It's an open gun. So most of the recommended part times are all just open part times that I took. And I think it says in there. So if you're looking at one of our workouts and you click the instructions for one of the classifier drills, if there's a classifier in that workout, it'll show, hey, it shows our assumptions. So it says, hey, this assumes 90% points shooting open. And it's right there in the corner there. So there's even classifiers that are like fixed time classifiers. We'll even tell you how many alphas we assumed you shot, and those were all based off of looking at both some more advanced like if then logic that I built in there, combined with kind of checking it versus data when those classifiers are put into national matches.
Okay, I'm gonna share just a snippet here of what you're talking about, just so that it makes sense. And that's what you're talking about there. So what he's talking about is on the this week's workout, actually.
Yep.
You actually do have. Okay, I just missed it when I was going through the different things. Yeah, you're right. Part-time goals based upon 90% points in open, and you give the part-time that you should be able to meet it in. Okay.
Yep. And awesome. Those are the, if you were to do a 6.4 seconds and hit 90% points in open, that would be, hitting that 85% threshold for master. That's right at that, 6.4 is right at that threshold, per the current high hit factor off of USPSA's website.
Right. So don't if you have a 6.41, don't cheat. That's not a master.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's 84%.
Okay.
And And we try to encourage people like, hey, most of our drills, when we're just doing you're just doing your workout, most of your drills don't have part-times associated with them. We want you focusing on the actual skill that you're trying to work on and the execution of the skill. And for the most part, not worrying about part-times. But it's kind of in the beginning and the end. In the beginning, when we're really isolating skills, we want you looking at part-times pretty closely. And at the end, when we're kind of giving you, not every day, you don't shoot a classifier every day. It's maybe a third of the days. A third of the days, we're going to give you a little final exam at the end and put you under the clock stress again and really have you focusing in on trying to push for a part-time.
Okay. All right. I like the layout of that. And just for everybody listening or watching, whatever they do, I mean, you have for like this week's workout, you've got a warm up, you've got a gun handling drill, you've got a short movement, a long movement, and under other, you've got a classifier with those part-time. So like you're saying, you can practice a bunch of things, and then that gives you the opportunity then, like you said, to kind of test yourself at the end to see how you're doing.
Yeah, and that format, it's a balance between, we want every day to be unique and interesting and different, which every day is different. There's always something different, but especially when you layer in all our modifiers and all that we have on the drills. But we also want to have a structure that makes sense, and I've seen that from coming from the CrossFit background. Like, there's this delicate balance between constantly varied and random chaos. Like there's this line that you gotta kind of and sometimes especially in CrossFit, they go over the line. I've seen it so many times that it's like, all right, cool, where is that line? And so that structure that you just went off, that where we start with your isolated skills, your integrated gun handling, then short movement, long movement, and then your other skills. And that's shown on our Instagram in that pyramid that we put out as well. That's the structure for all our workouts. And then within those categories, you'll see variance within the drills. So each workout in our current system has the same structure, just different drills for each of the 5 categories.
So this is the pyramid you're talking about, right?
Yep.
Again, this is right off the Instagram page. So, and basically what you're saying is marksmanship being the most important basis.
Yep.
And then gun handling, short movement, long movement, and then the things you do the least, which would be strong hand, weak hand, other things.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So so for people wondering about subscribing, how do these play into how you determine what's going in next week?
So I guess starting off, the marksmanship component of things is always present. It's ever present. But realistically, if the fundamental base of the pyramid, you kind of got to get that live fire. Like there's nothing that can replace that. So that kind of falls to a certain extent a little bit outside of the program, in which doubles and practical accuracy are some of the best drills out there for establishing that. Once you get into the program, that's where we start layering the gun handling and all the other drills. Sorry, I got off on a tangent. What was the question again?
I'm just trying to figure out how you use your bullet-shaped chart.
Yep.
To determine what drills you're putting in, like next week and then the week after.
Yep. So this is just a piece of it. So this kind of shows the original structure in the sense of, like, every workout we do is going to have 5 drills. And the first drill is actually, for what we do, is going to be isolated gun handling. So we are just focused on either transition, draw, or reload. It's just one of those. It's isolated. We're going to work it against the part-time. That's what we do as kind of our first warm-up every day. And it's going to be one of those in some way. There's a bunch of different ways we will press or test those, but one of the 3. And then in the next drill, which now we're getting into the pyramid, that second aspect, is going to be what we call a transition drill, where we're definitely drawing and we're transitioning, and we might be reloading too, and we're starting to integrate those three gun handling skills together. And then the next drill could be any one of those different categories. It could be a moving draw, moving reload, or a blend drill. And those are just adding that additional layer. So we're taking all our integrated gun handling, and now we're saying, hey, move your feet a little bit, and so forth into long movement, where you could have 3 different categories of drills, and a bunch of different modifiers and variants upon those. And then same thing as you go up. So every as we work through our workout, we're working our way up the pyramid, adding a layer of skills or difficulty as we go.
Okay.
And essentially every workout, you're going to get a piece of that pyramid or all of the pyramid. Right. Yeah. So a common question for us is like, hey, how often should I work out? You guys give workouts 7 days a week. Well, it's like, that's the beauty of this, that you're going to get the pyramid pretty much every single workout. So if you do 3 days a week, 2 days a week, 5 days a week, you're going to get that whole pyramid regardless.
Okay.
And I think what you may have been asking a little bit more, like kind of continuing, if you had clicked over one image to that pie chart that was right there on the Instagram as well, that kind of answers the second layer of your question, I think, which is, how do we pick, all right, cool, are we doing a moving draw today, a moving reload, or a blend for the short movement? How do we pick that? Well, that's all based upon nationals data. We mined the nationals data from nationals all the way back to when we started this in 2020. And well, how often do these skills come up? How often do you get put in situations in which you must do this thing? And then the program feeds you, that we make sure that the program's feeding that ratio of within that category, obviously with tweaks as needed for what we deem to be necessary, or what Casey in his with his background and skills deems to be necessary.
Now, okay, because that was one of the questions I had was, with this, have you guys already started looking at 2023 numbers to add to this?
Yes.
Or are you waiting? Okay.
Yep. So as soon as Carry Optics Nationals was done, I integrated into our workout generator, and it's a part of the program now. And every Nationals that happens shortly thereafter, I'm taking all the data I can from it, integrated into our generator, and it's, what I'd say is the percentages don't move much as you continue. Once we had about 3-4 nationals in, it's pretty much the same stuff. Like for example, this wide narrow transition, it's been 92% to 8%. Literally since 2020. As soon as I put in the 3 nationals in 2020, it was there, and it hasn't moved since. So yeah,
it's interesting. That's really interesting. That brings up a lot of questions. Is that because the same people are doing the stages, or is it because the bays are narrow? You know what I mean? Like, I wonder why only 8% are wide transitions. That's very, very interesting.
So I think that there's, and we're both engineers, so we're both very data-driven people. Like, I'm very much skeptical of any, what is considered, what do they call it on the floor, Casey? Like the old man knowledge.
Black magic, yeah.
Like the historical.
Yeah.
Yeah, like oh, it's this way because it's always been this way, or everybody knows this, or
right.
Of course there's, you need to work on wide transitions a lot, and it's like, well, how much wide transitions? How much do we do wide versus narrow? I don't know, but you really need to focus on wide. Well, I want to know what the data says. I want to know how often, how many shots am I going to shoot with weak hand versus strong hand versus freestyle? How many, over the course of this whole, what is this sport that we're shooting? It's not open ended. There's constraints to it. And so putting this data together helps understand what the constraints are and what we're doing. And when looking at wide transitions as a shooter, if you are a higher level shooter who has adapted stage planning, you're going to do everything you can to limit your wide transitions. So, as a stage designer, if you're putting together a stage, to put together a stage that forces the shooter to do a lot of wide transitions is very difficult, very, very difficult. Especially a shooter who's adept at stage planning, because they're going to figure out how to minimize that, how to avoid that. Same thing with static reloads. If you go to one of our other images, the static reload count is incredibly low. Is that because that's because an adept shooter at stage planning is going to all but eliminate static reloads if he can. And so we take that into consideration. That doesn't mean that we program our wide transitions versus narrow transitions at exactly that ratio. Sometimes like static reloads, I know we do more static reloads than you're actually going to see in a match. But actually for the narrow and wide transitions, we keep it about this ratio because that's what we see.
That's pretty interesting. Do you guys know the show Home Improvement?
Maybe before our day, a little bit.
Yeah,
Tim Allen, that name comes up.
Yeah, Tim
right?
Allen. Yeah,
okay,
Tim Allen.
My dad watched that when I was a kid. I'm like familiar a little bit.
Well, there was a neighbor who all you could ever see was the top of his face. I'm feeling like that guy right now, sharing the screen with just the top of my face showing on the screen. I looked up, I'm like, oh, I'm the guy from Home Improvement. Oh, a sidetrack. Now, okay, so here's my question, though. For something like, I feel like static reloads, that'd be pretty easy to determine, but how are you figuring out whether these transitions, especially if you haven't shot the match, how are you determining whether they are actually narrow or wide? What are you basing that on?
We've shot all the matches. All these matches that we're mining data from, we shot. So I can pull up the match book, look what it's supposed to be, and then I can pull up both our stage videos and look like what we actually executed upon.
Well, and I asked that because this year's Carry Optics Nationals, I didn't shoot it, but looking at the stage videos that people posted and what the matchbook was, I shot the last 3 Carry Optics Nationals, and this was by far the most different from what was on the ground. Like Drew Maruski had sent me video footage of all of the day 3 videos that people were going to be shooting. Mm-hmm. And there were a couple of them that I was looking at the matchbook and I'm looking at his stage video and I'm like, I'm not sure which one is which here. I got to try to figure this out. So that's why I was asking. But if you've shot them, then it doesn't matter because you have that stage video to go by. So
yeah, it was very different on the ground than what it was. That's why I do both when I'm building out our data. Combine both. Look at the matchbook, but then watch the video to confirm.
The thing I do like is you guys have both. You have IPSC and USPSA. Now, is there any plan to add IDPA targets to this, or are you just going to stick with USPSA and IPSC?
Well, we did have IDPA targets at one point, did we not?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We collected data on our users, and we just didn't have many IDPA shooters.
We didn't. Yep. And then we did delete the IPSC at one point as well, just because the same thing. But then we did get some requests to put it back in, so we have done that. So if we do get requests for IDPA, we certainly will. But at this time, it's just not really relevant.
Now it's interesting. Why? What were the reasons behind wanting the IPSC targets back up?
We have a lot of IPSC shooters.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Casey,
they're closet shooters.
Yeah, Casey shoots a lot internationally. He does a lot of the IPSC stuff. So,
right.
People who are following him are obviously going to see what he's doing, and so we actually have a decent amount of our membership is IPSC. So, sometimes you learn what you can and can't do by just trying it. And so at one point we had turned over arrays and we just released the USPSA. When earlier arrays we had released USPSA, IPSC, and IDPA, and we immediately had an outcry for IPSC and nothing for IDPA. So we put the IPSC back in and we left the IDPA out.
There you go. All right, that makes perfect sense. Supply and demand, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
it's not just IPSC shooters as well. I mean, we do see a lot of IPSC targets within USPSA matches, so I think it only makes sense to have both.
And I would tend to agree with you. I mean, wasn't there a stage at Carry Optics Nationals that was all IPSC targets?
Yeah,
A
Yep.
couple.
couple.
Yeah.
And we try as well to, because USPSA is not just USPSA targets, it can be both. Our USPSA arrays are always a mix of both. The IPSC arrays are exclusively IPSC targets, because the guys internationally, they don't see any USPSA targets. So that was a request, and I think it's reasonable.
Okay. It seems like too you guys have and maybe it's Casey's. I know there's a bunch of YouTube videos up too that people can go to, and it's Dryfire Systems. Yeah, you guys have a bunch of videos up. Oh, looky here. Here's your. Yeah, here we go. Oh, it was on YouTube that it looks like you did like a created something, a video on your phone, and then uploaded it to YouTube, like a short or something.
Yeah,
And
we've
it's
been putting out a
more
variety of content.
statistics.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now this is interesting. Some of these drills can be found on YouTube as well.
Yeah, we've put out, so within, as you saw within the program, we have videos for every drill. So as you get your workout, you can read how to do it in writing, and what the steps of the drills and what we're trying to focus on and the goal of each drill, or you can watch a video of one of us demonstrating that drill. So as we've added dozens and dozens of different drills over our iterations, we have a lot of drill videos, and sometimes we just put those out for free on our YouTube or Instagram.
And that is right there. It's not just drills either. I mean, here's strong hand, weak hand techniques, sighting, movement. So you have a bunch of stuff too that really would go well with the drills, because it's a further explanation of handgun handling and other things.
Yep. That was our technique series. We did an entire series of all the different, so not just drilling, but now like how to actually do these skills. So that's where you can see like how to rack the gun on loaded start to how to enter position.
Is there any plan in the future to maybe reference certain videos on YouTube in the workouts? Like, they can go back and check something out if they're having issues with something, or they want more information on the gun handling for that workout this week.
So I think in one of our early iterations, in one of our early iterations, we had that. Every single drill, the description of every drill had a link to, here's your technique that we want you focused on. Here's the aspect of that. It ended up with a bunch of broken links is what it did.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was just kind of a nightmare to maintain when, a quick YouTube search of our channel, just going to our channel. There's really, I think, Ben says it all the time. This stuff's actually pretty simple. It's just really hard to do. So there's a decent amount of videos we have on there, but there's really not that many of them. It's typically pretty easy to find the skill and how we cover it, or how we present it. That being said, one of the unique things or interesting things about the Dryfire Systems program is we're not telling you, how to do the skill in the program. If you like doing a snatch draw versus scoop draw, if you like gripping your gun with, front to back pressure all around, none of that matters. And the program is still great for you. We're not talking about how to execute skills. We're just identifying, these are the situations you're going to be put in matches. Practice it. However you navigate that skill, whether you like shuffle stepping or cross stepping or whatever it be, you're going to have to go from point A to point B while engaging targets. Do it as you will.
Yeah, and I only bring it up because I'm going to use the example you mentioned earlier, again in the hotel room, where you're throwing magazines everywhere trying to hit the reload, then maybe, that's where, for the week's workout, if you have issues with the gun handling for this week's drills, this would be the video you could reference if you need to, type of a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And that's definitely why we put all that stuff out, is we want, our version of how we execute skills to be out there, and we're continuing to develop more content for that stuff. The tricky part about that is every workout's so balanced in the things that it covers that, we have had that in the past where we had skill focuses where we'd have a month where we'd focus on reloads, or we'd focus on entries, or whatever that would be, and we put out an email to our members or message that said, hey, here's the videos, and a lot of that content's the stuff that we put out more recently. Here's the videos for covering this skill focus. Now we found that we like having a really balanced program. So it's really going to come down to the individual athlete or shooter. Hey, what are you struggling with? What are you focused on? Because every day is going to be pretty balanced. It might have a little bit, oh, cool, we're doing unloaded starts today. I haven't done that in a week or two, but for the most part, it's going to be very, very balanced.
Now, where do you guys see this going? This whole Dryfire system? Do you have visions of growing it into something larger, or just continuing with the way you're doing it?
So, and Casey, he can speak to his vision. My vision is, I wanted, like, this started with me wanting to figure out how to best structure my training, and learning from a amazing shooter, top 10 in the world, top 5 at nationals this last year, shooter, on how do you train. I want to learn how to train like that. And through that process, and our goals together were, all right, cool. If I'm going to do all the work to structure my training like this, it'd be cool if I could share that with more than just me. So it's really pretty modest goals, in the sense of I'm already going to do all this for me, so I might as well try to package it up a little better, explain it a little better, put in a little bit of extra work, and share it with the rest of my friends and any other shooters in the community who really want to get better. So there's not necessarily a grand end goal, but it's the really modest, humble goal of, hey, we're just trying to share it with as many shooters as we can, and help people advance in the sport. If our flavor of doing things is able to help them, great.
Yeah, and for me, a lot of the same things Luke said, but on top of that, I mean, there's been a lot of culture within the shooting sports that you have to figure out everything on your own, right? And that's kind of how I was brought up, is like, I have to do my own research, I have to be an engineer about it, and like just figure it out. And that takes a lot of time and effort. And so if we can help shooters bypass a lot of that, right? I have 12 years in the sport. Luke has the same amount in the sport, obviously some of it casual, but like, there's a lot of knowledge already there. So if you can bypass a lot of that, you can accelerate so much faster. And so that's what the goal of this is, to like, hey, it's because, I mean, I'll be honest, in 2012, I was super overwhelmed of like, how do I practice? I don't even know what to do. I've shot a few matches, but I don't even know what to practice. So I just sit there and draw for an hour. So, for new shooters coming into the game, they can literally bypass all those questions and have something built for you right there. And that's something that we didn't have, back when we were shooters in the beginning of the sport.
I wish I would have had this. And when I have friends who are new to competitive shooting, or friends a while who I just got to know better, and they go, hey man, like, especially the new guys, like, okay, cool, I see videos, people talking about Dryfire. What do I do? And it's like, hey, instead of me having to like take and like, walk them through, maybe they don't even live in the same part of the country as me, we're college friends and they live across the country or whatever. I can be like, hey, go to my website, check it out, print off the targets, do some workouts. And it really, it simplifies the process for someone trying to get started in Dryfire, because you still got a ton of stuff to figure out. You got to figure out all the skills, and whether our techniques work for you or somebody else's techniques work for you or whatever. And everybody's a little bit different on how they're going to execute that techniques, but at least the daily of what do I do? What do I want to work on today? That's all taken care of for you.
Yep.
And that really can help simplify the process.
Well, and I mean, Luke, the last time you were on and we chatted, you talked about the group of shooters that you're friends with and the folks that you travel around with. So people have been shooting for decades, and this is really a conglomeration of what you guys have learned through conversations and shooting with those guys, and then trying to put that into practice yourself and what you've learned and all of that. So it's already a melting pot of ideas of everything you've learned throughout your entire shooting time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, guys, that's what I had. It looks pretty wild. I mean, in a good way. I mean, it's very structured. I had that written down earlier. I was like, the structure is the first thing that I noticed. It's, and I wanted you guys on because I had seen a couple of posts on this Dryfire Systems. I'm like, where's this coming from? It's a couple of times I've seen these posts now. It's weird how sometimes you see things, sometimes you don't, and occasionally something will pop up in your Instagram feed. So when I found out it was you guys, I was like, wait a minute, this is pretty interesting. But I do love the structure of it and how, like you guys said, basically a new shooter can come in here and not have to think about what do I need to train on. They just need to focus on what they're doing because the training is set up for them. So I like it.
And even Casey can speak to this a lot too, as we started to structure things more. And, even for the more advanced MGM shooters, which we have some guys who are pretty high level guys who are members. There's certain skills that with the way that our generator, gives workouts and the way that we structure the workouts, there's just stuff that happens where it's a skill that you wouldn't have ever thought to practice on your own, and I don't know, is there one that you can think of that really popped to you when we started structuring our workouts this way, is that you're like, damn, I've never worked that before?
Yeah, like either mag stowage on the belt and then loading, things like that all in one. There's a couple small ones that are like that. It's like you've done it in a match before, but like you would never ever train it.
And one for me is like, there's a lot of times that in our drills you'll end up standing basically on a fault line in a lean where you're drawing into a lean and then you're blending out of that lean, for example, and like starting with my feet tucked into a corner with my feet together and drawing into a lean. That's not necessarily something that I can ever remember doing in Dryfire before I started this program with Casey. It's just not something that you'd be like, all right, cool, I'll draw and I'll enter into position and maybe I'll lean in that position. But like starting in a corner, and leaning up against the fault line, drawing to, a target. But I can think of, a dozen stages in which I've had to do that, where you start in a place where you have to draw into a lean. And so that's just one example of many where, there are skills that, especially as a less experienced shooter than Casey, there's no way on my own I ever would have practiced that in Dryfire. But now I get into a match and it's like, okay, I remember, from training, I tried in training doing that a couple different ways. I tried, keeping my feet kind of more narrow and just leaning kind of up high. I tried stepping my feet out as I drew and getting kind of in a low lean. And I found the techniques that work for me. I found, with the blend drills we do, all right, how far can I really get off of just 2 steps? And if it's just about a foot or two over, should I just step drag or should I kind of cross step 2 steps and all these little like techniques things, just by being presented through the Dryfire Systems workout, being presented a situation in which I probably never would have been able to come up with on my own. It forced me to develop the skills that as soon as we get into a match, it's like, all right, I've done all these little weird leans and blends and awkward things that stage designers can come up with. I've done them all in little pieces and drills, over the last, years that I've been doing this.
Now, how much has the two of you being able to have deeper conversations, helped each other come up with the concept for this. What I'm asking is, do you guys think that if one of you was doing this by yourself, you would have come up with this system that you have now?
Oh, no fucking
No
way.
way.
No way.
No.
Okay. All right.
I mean, this has evolved. I mean, I had this idea, I came to Luke with it back in 2018, 19, but it has evolved so much. And that comes from Luke. It comes from the guys that we shoot with. I mean, yeah, it's evolved huge compared to 4 years ago. So no, absolutely not. I mean, we're obviously brainstorming and talking every single day about this stuff.
And
Always
I
making it better.
don't think there's any way that without Casey's abilities and knowledge as a shooter and his innate understanding of shooting and his years in shooting and his engineering mind being able to like without his skill level, there's no way that this could have had merit behind it, I think. And like really, it really validated, that like, all right, cool. This is the way he trains, and then without I guess my curiosity and my questioning everything and really making Casey, Casey would be like, well, I train like this, all right, cool. Why? Well, because this, well, why, and why and how, and this, and asking every little question in detail. Without that, I don't think we would have cracked open as many details and as much structure as we did.
Yeah.
I believe it. I mean, anytime you can collaborate with people, you've got a much better opportunity to really kind of polish it up and come up with really good ideas. So, all right, I do have one last question I got to ask. I'm going to share a picture here. Okay. I just want to know whose matrix room is this? This is the whitest matrix room I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah, so that's my basement.
Okay.
Yep.
Now we know.
Yep.
Man, I was like, I thought it was a room at Federal, to be honest with you. I'm like, what kind of room is that?
So back at some point, I forget when, I had remodeled my basement to be a workshop because I do this with Casey. I have another business, Faust Systems, in which I do a little bit of manufacturing of some tactical products right now, looking at some competitive products. And then just my life is a workshop. So I had remodeled my basement to do that and film content down there. So we got some really good lighting and a nice white, clean space, so that the viewer can focus on what's being done and not the pile of junk in the corner or whatever else is in the shot.
I feel like you could put someone in a straitjacket, put them in that room, and film a movie. Some
Absolutely.
crazy dude.
Potentially.
Yeah, potentially. I like it. And I'm not insulting your room. I was just like, wow, that is the cleanest, whitest room I've ever seen. So impressive.
Yep.
And it seemed to work out perfect for you guys.
Yeah, it works out very well as a it's a training area for me. I have both my garage and my basement set up with our 1/3 in the garage and our 1/6 down in that basement room. They're arrays. We have a 1/3 array for roughly a garage sized room, and then a 1/6 for roughly a bedroom sized room. And it allows us to test out the arrays before we release them, make sure that they're going to work well for our users, and then film all the drills so that we have good clean instructions for everybody.
Well, was there anything else you feel we needed to talk about, or that I didn't bring up?
I guess the one more comment I can make is, Luke is very, very organized. You can see the structure of our website and the structure of the white room, and everything is laid out.
The clean website.
Very clean. Yeah, everything is super clean and organized. And, to some people, it's not sexy, right? They want something that's a little more sexy. But we're giving you a product that, it's super organized, clean, easy to follow. And, you still have to put the work in. That's what we're trying to give you. So we're not trying to give you some sexy gadget. Like, this is hard work. This is how Luke and I have got to be good shooters, like Dryfire every single day. And so we're giving you the cleanest, most organized, best version of that.
And okay, I'm going to add one thing to that. This to me, makes two-a-days easier because all I have to do is go into my garage, look at the workout, have the stuff already on the wall, look at the workout, do it, and then leave. Then that
Yep.
evening I can come back, look at the workout, do it, and leave. There's none of that waiting, 15 minutes of figuring out what you're going to do, arranging everything. No, it's done.
Yep.
The targets are on the wall. Oh, here's what I need to do. Okay. It's a 60-second read and then practice, and that's it.
Yep,
Exactly.
And that helps eliminate bias too. That's something we haven't really touched on, but like, shooters, myself included, like we have biases. Like we like to practice certain things, right? But in the case of our sport, you're required to do certain skills that you don't like doing, like drawing on a lean to a 25-yard partial. No one wants to do that, and no one wants to practice that. But if you follow our program, it's going to make you do these things that you're not comfortable with doing, but that's going to help you in a match, right? So you just standing in one spot, drawing to 7-yard target it's only going to get you so far. So if this kind of encompasses a lot of skills that you like Luke said earlier, you see in matches, like you're going to have to do these skills. So start doing it in Dryfire.
And we're really boiling down those those pie graphs we put out were the nice simple ones that we could really simply present to people. There's levels of detail that are somewhat absurd as far as how often you go left, right, and forward, and every different skill movement, target distance, frequency of everything we've looked at, and we try to make a program that is very realistic in what it provides. Like, we try to have the right balance of, we know that at 1/3 scale, if you're standing here for this drill, that's going to be at this distance, this distance, this distance. And it's a realistic blend of distances and shot difficulties that you're going to see at a nationals level match.
With all of I know you shot like the Polish Extreme and some other matches as well as the World Shoot. Do these numbers, are they similar for IPSC, or do you find that IPSC's a little different?
I think some data analysis on some IPSC matches, it's a little different, but I mean, it's very close to the same game. I mean, you had a lot more like static draws in IPSC and things like that. But other than that, I mean, it's the movement skills. A lot of this stuff is pretty similar. I mean, there's Luke, you probably talked a little more, but yeah, it's not extremely different, but there is some differences.
Okay.
Exactly. He nailed it. I did some analysis on some IPSC matches. I don't travel overseas yet, but I did the Pan American and the Pan American Extreme with Casey this last year. And the data was different. And there was a debate for a little bit. Hey, do we want to start integrating some IPSC data into our generator? It wasn't different enough that it looked like the juice was going to be worth the squeeze. He identified some of the key points, some more static draws, a little bit, obviously less reloading with your 3-2-1 short course stuff, and your higher, you don't have your production division stuff that's only 10 rounds. But for the most part, it's still a very similar sport.
Yeah.
Well, guys, if that's all you got, that's all I've got. I appreciate you guys coming on. It's a very interesting conversation, and I definitely like what you guys have put together. It looks good.
Yeah, thank you.
For sure. I appreciate you checking it out. Have you had a chance to do any workouts or set it up at all?
I have not, but that is my plan. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when I saw the par times and stuff, because I do like the way it is. I'm like you, Luke. I like structure. So for me, that's why I say I have Excel spreadsheets for everything. I just like every, that's how I analyze things. That it's crazy. So when I saw the layout of it, I was like, oh, I like this a lot. And you guys have no freaking idea how much time I'll spend like creating a Dryfire schedule. Okay, this week I'm going to do this, and I'm trying not to duplicate it the next week or nights and mornings, And I'm not going to say I waste a lot of time, but I spend a lot of time looking at it, and that's exhausting. So something like this, I don't have to get exhausted thinking about it. I can literally go, oh, let me strap my gear on. What am I doing today? Oh, here it is. Easy day.
Yeah.
So,
yep. And that's the kind of person that that's the kind of person our product's for, is the person who thinks like that, wants to work like that, and goes, well, wait, $15 a month and I don't have to think about any of this, and it's just done for me, and it's being done, connected into a top 10 shooter, like, hell yeah. Done.
Yeah.
Easy.
But it's not just Casey Reed, the top 10 shooter, or Luke Faust, the master class shooter. I also know that it's the group of people you run with also, because I know indirectly they've made an impact on this somewhere.
Absolutely.
Through those conversations and competing together. So
yeah.
That it's more well-rounded than just two people. So that's why I keep saying that, because it is more than that.
Yeah.
Well, Casey, I need to get you on sometime so I can interrogate you about your entire shooting career.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'll shoot you an email.
Okay.
We'll have to get you back on too, Luke. For
sure.
Next time we can talk just shooting. We don't have to talk about politics of USPSA.
Yeah. Some elections just got wrapped up, huh?
Yes, they did.
The initial elections got wrapped up. Runoff time.
Yeah. Well, I guess one of them is complete.
Yeah. The Area 8?
Yeah, 8 is done.
Yep. And then 6 and presidential go to runoff.
Yep. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it will be.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for being on. Until next time.
Don't be a little bitch.
Yeah.